So now I think we are good to go ahead and get Miriam pulled up. What do you think, Brian?
I think we are ready. Miriam, just to let you know, I'm going to pull you up, but your mic is muted, okay?
Gotta love technology, right? Hello, Miriam. How are you?
Hello, how are you guys doing?
Doing fabulous. We're so happy to see you again. I'm excited to see all about the 780 plus.
Yeah,
How's it in your area today?
I wanted to tell you a quick story about the history of bobbins a little bit, since you were just talking about bobbins. So actually the reason Janome is called Janome is because the gentleman who created Janome actually changed the way the bobbins were made. Originally, they were more of a shuttle shape, and then he's the one who changed it to a circle. And he thought it looked like an eye of a snake. So Janome actually means eye of the snake in Japanese.
Oh my goodness, awesome. That is amazing. The more
I love
you know,
that story.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Awesome. All right, Miriam. Well, you've joined us before, so you know that if you need anything, I will be in the background. And if we have any questions that we see you can answer during the segment, we'll be sure to shout that out for you. Otherwise, we can answer some questions at the end. But I will let you take it away and tell us all the good things about that 780 plus.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thanks again for having me. I love doing these events. I love sharing my love of Elna and Janome. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to switch to the small screen. If you guys can switch that over. Yeah, awesome. So this is Stitch Composer. So one of the really cool things about the Elna 780 Plus is that there is this software program that comes with it called Stitch Composer. And it allows you to create your stitches from scratch. So if you wanted to have a decorative stitch that looked like a KitchenAid, you could create that decorative stitch. And I'm going to actually show you the stitch out of that particular stitch that we created. But I'm going to do a quick little demo so that you can see it in action. All right, so this is the program. It's very simple to use. And what's nice about it is that you can do some very simple things very fast, and then you can get more involved and more detailed and more complex as you get more experienced with the software. So I'm going to start up here. So I have a new page, and I'm going to go to start point right up here. We have start points, end points, loop points, and our finish. So if I was done, I could hit the finish. So when I get to that point, I'll put this finish, I'll activate that button. So I'm going to go to my start point first. And I can start anywhere I want. Actually, it looks like there's already one here. So I'm just going to create a new one. All right, so now we're going to do a new one. There we go. So I can do anything I want. I'm just going to create really any sort of pattern that you want. If I wanted, I can also, if I go up to this view, I could put an image in the background. So if I wanted to trace something, I could put a background image on. I can also make it transparent, so it's a little bit easier to see the grid as well as the image. So I'm going to go back to my home, and then I'm going to just finish this because I'm happy with this design. if I go back to my view, I'm going to play, and on the side right here, this is my preview. And this is going to stitch out my stitch that I just created. So it's going to be a little faint, but you should be able to see it stitching all the way down. And then what I could do, I can stop that stitching out, go back to my home, and if I'm happy with this design, I can save it to my computer, save it where I want, and then I can also write it to a USB stick. I currently don't have one in because I already have one, the machine that we're going to pull up, a decorative stitch that I created before. So if I wanted to, I would put my USB stick in, write it to the USB, and then bring it over to my machine. So let's go ahead and stitch out one of the stitches I've created. All right, so this is the decorative stitch that I had mentioned before. So this is the decorative stitch that actually Anne Hine created. This is a project that I did that's a while ago for another dealer. And it's a little shawl with a towel at the end for when you're cooking to just wipe your hands on. But it has this adorable little KitchenAid or mixer stitch. So that is some of the really cool things you can create with this program. These are some simpler ones that I created. So we're going to stitch these out. So I'm going to pull this one up. So I have just some fabric. Anytime you do decorative stitches, I recommend having a stabilizer. This is a tearaway stabilizer that is very paper-like, and it's a lot easier to tear. It's softer. I really like this particular stabilizer, and there are several brands that create this type. All right, so I'm going to go to my screen here, and I'm going to go to this folder icon. Let's see. I'm going to pull this over a little bit. It's just a little out of there. We go. Okay, I'm going to pull this folder, select that, and then I also have my USB stick selected, so that's good. And then I'm going to open up this file. And then there was 2 stitches here that I have on my USB stick that I've created. I'm going to select this first one. Oh, I had my feed dogs engaged or dropped, so I actually need to push those back on. So let's go ahead and open this back up. We have that selected. I'm going to pull this up. Let's see. Where'd you go? There we go. So I already have it pulled up it's already saved to my machine. So I didn't need to open it up through the folder. So now this is my decorative stitch that I've created. They're kind of like flying geese. So now I'm going to just stitch it out. I have my F2 foot on. That's the other thing you can do in the program is you can select what foot you'd like it to stitch on. And you can select either the F foot or the A foot. So now I'm just going to start sewing. And then I'm going to get to the point I'm done. And you can see how cute that little flying geese stitch is. And that's how easy it is to create your own stitches using Stitch Composer. So let's go back to our home because I want to talk about ruler work quickly. But before I do that, I want to go over a few other features on the Elna eXcellence 780 Plus. So it's a 9mm machine, so it allows you to create any stitch with the maximum width of 9mm. It comes with 3 different stitch plates, as well as 25 feet, which is a lot, and an additional 20 accessories. There's an extension table. There's 350 built-in stitches, in addition to favorite stitch, which allows you to edit any stitch to your new specification. So I like to use the example of your 1/4-inch stitch. Everybody sews a little bit differently, and some people push to the right, push to the left, and the default settings may not work for you. So with this machine, you can turn your favorite stitch on, and it allows you to save the settings that you prefer so you don't have to change it every time you start to sew. There's also resume mode, which is another one of my favorite features because it allows you to, when you're sewing and you're done sewing for the end of the day, you turn off your machine. The next day, later on when you come in, turn on your machine. It's going to ask you, would you like to resume your last stitch? If you hit OK, no matter what stitch you're on, no matter what setting you're on, it's going to go directly to that stitch. So it allows your selection of stitches a lot faster, which who doesn't want to save a little extra time? Because I know I could always use a little bit of extra time, and I'm sure I'm not the only one out there.
Hey, Miriam, Brian wants to share a little something too.
Oh yeah, great.
Let me turn my mic on. I keep forgetting. I actually think that's really cool because last night I was quilting and I had my piecing foot on and I had to leave to go run an errand really quickly. So I turned my machine off and then I came back to my sewing machine and turned it back on and started sewing as if it was set up to sew what I was doing. And my piecing foot has the needle hole to the left. So my machine reverted back to the center position and I broke a needle and I was like, oh no, what if I just put my machine out of time? And I just realized if I had something like that, then I wouldn't break my needles nearly as often. So
it is one of those like simple features that are kind of underused or underappreciated because it really is simple, but sometimes the simplest things are the best. And I think favorite stitch and resume mode are some of those things. So let's go ahead and go over ruler work. So we're going to go back to the close angle and we're going to switch to ruler work. Like I mentioned, there are 25 feet that come with this machine. And one of those is the ruler foot, which is this foot right here. One thing that makes this foot special is here. Let's see. See that little dip in the front? That little U? That's cut down so it allows you to see the needle a lot easier. If this was completely covered, it'd be a little harder to see your needle. So that's a really nice feature on this particular foot. So I'm going to take the ankle off of this foot because it's not a snap-on foot. Anytime you remove an ankle, a needle, anything along that lines, you always want to use a screwdriver. Now, I didn't need to take that screw completely off. I just needed to loosen it. And then I slide from the back. Okay, so my hand is a little in the way. Let me see if I can do it the other way. All right, so sliding the ankle from the back and then just tightening it. And then I'm going to use my screwdriver.
That's talent right there, Miriam, doing it one-handed.
I was not sure if it was going to work. Glad it did. All right, so now that I have the ankle on, now I have to change the settings on the machine. If we look at the screen, you see this t-shirt icon? This is sewing applications. When I select sewing applications, I'm going to go ahead and turn the page because it has an indication saying that I'm on page 1 of 2. I'm going to turn my page. I'm going to select quilting, variable zigzag, and ruler work. All right, we've got that selected. I'm going to turn the page one more and select ruler work. I'm going to lower my feed dogs, which is right here on the right-hand side. And now you'll notice it has the QR foot, which is my ruler foot. It has these settings, but I do also have the ability to change any of these settings and then again save it to my favorite stitch. But if I wanted to go back to the default, I could just go ahead and hit the DFT. And that's the same for every stitch on this machine. So I'm going to go ahead and start quilting. One thing I want to point out, here's just some quick examples of ruler work. So this is just some quick little bag that I created that has some ruler work on it.
That's gorgeous.
And these
Miriam.
are all, thank you. These are all from the Janome ruler sets. These are all from the Janome ruler sets. So I've pre-marked my fabric with this template that allows me to line up particular designs. I'm going to be using this Spin Flex ruler. Oh, here's just some more. This is one of my favorite. And this is just done with your straight ruler, which it's one of my favorites. But I also really like straight lines. All right, so this is the fabric marked. So now I'm going to start in the center. I'm going to place my fabric under my foot. And this particular ruler has this puzzle piece that allows you to slide under your foot. And then you just replace that. And I just have a piece of tape on it to keep it secure. So I'm going to start here at the center. I like to lower my foot when it has plenty of space and it's not close to the ruler. And then I can slide it back where I want to start, which is right here. Because I can see my little dot here in the center. One of the great things about this machine is you have this awesome giant foot pedal. And I'm going to go ahead and put this on the ground because I prefer to sew with a foot pedal. But I just wanted to show you how nice and big that is. And
Miriam,
the pedal,
you may have mentioned it, but does your template have like any grips or anything on it, like little silicone grips? Do you need that?
It does not, but I do have a spray that I put on it.
Oh, I'm not familiar with the spray. What's that product called?
It is escaping my mind right now.
That's okay. If you think of it, just
I
let me
can
know.
send you the message right after this, and then you can tell everyone.
All right, sounds like a plan.
It's a great, great product because you can actually spray it on your cutting rulers as well and add that little extra grip so they don't slide. But there are other little grippy things that you can get. This is just the one that I've preferred. All right, so I'm going to go back to that center point. There are lots of lines on this ruler, and I'm going to line up the center one at this front and lining it up with the markings on my fabric. All right. So if you notice, it just did a one stitch stop. I'm going to pull up my bobbin thread. And now I need my tweezers. There we go. And now I can start quilting and I'll have a nice clean back. And when I start quilting, I do stitch in place just for a second to lock my stitches. And I'm just gently pushing against the edge of my ruler and gently pushing down on my template. And then I can rotate, get that thread out of there, rotate my template, and then do the same thing.
Brian and I have some templates coming to us, and we are so excited to try ruler work. You're making it look a lot easier than I'm thinking it is.
Well, I just made a big boo-boo, so maybe not that as far as the angle that I'm sewing at the very least.
Well, and just so everybody knows, when trying to stay out of the camera shot, it can be a little bit more awkward than if you were not worrying about a camera. You're doing great, Miriam.
Very true. So the other cool thing about this ruler is you can actually rotate it as well and then get the point on the outside. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to rotate this a little bit more so you can see that. And then what I can do is stitch in place a little bit, and then I can either cut my threads or I could pull my bobbin thread up. Just going to stitch in place. I'm just going to cut my threads. Not the most beautiful demo, but you can kind of see how cool that can look and how easy it can be. So before we run out of time, I do want to go over stitch plates because they're a really cool addition to this machine. So with the stitch plate, we have what's called a quick release stitch plate. There's this lever right here, and all I have to do is pop this up, and now I can change my stitch plate.
If anybody's tuned in to our SewCreative Lives in the past, I am a huge fan of this feature. I love the one-step needle plate.
So do I. it gives me slightly less reasons not to clean my machine. Because I can get very lazy.
That's what I found
about cleaning my machine.
Yeah.
But it is a lot easier to do, and I'm more likely to do it with this quick release stitch plate. And then I want to point out a few things on this. So let's pull this a little closer. So this is my standard zigzag stitch plate that you're going to use for any decorative stitch or anything that you want to be able to have free mobility of moving your needle. There also are a few markings here that I want to point out. So all of these markings, when you line up your fabric against, let's say, the 120 degrees, like you're doing a hexagon, when you line them up from this straight line, your needle is going to line up in the 1/4 inch position, exactly a 1/4 inch from the end, so that you don't have to make hundreds or dozens of markings at the beginning and the end of all of your pieces. If you just use those markings, it's going to make your life so much easier and save so much time. So that's the zigzag stitch plate. Next, we have the straight stitch plate. This one is really nice for 1/4 inch piecing, free motion quilting, ruler work, because it has smaller holes. And actually, the center is a complete circle. And then on the right and the left are ovals. So it allows you to move your needle in this small percentage of settings, so that you can get the 1/4 inch exactly the way you want it. Same with over on the left side when you're free motion quilting. This is also really good for thin fabrics or tiny piecing, that sometimes if you're starting at a point, you can get that suck down that happens if you have your zigzag plate on, and this is going to help prevent that. And then lastly, but certainly not least, also with the straight stitch plate, your machine knows which plate you have on. So that if you have your straight stitch plate on and you're trying to do a zigzag, it's going to be grayed out and you're not even going to be able to select it. So it prevents you from doing anything that would damage the machine. So this last stitch plate is one of my favorites. This is the HP plate, which stands for high performance. So with a top loading bobbin, the most accurate stitch that you're going to get is on the left hand side. And the reason that is because your bobbin tail is over here on the left hand side. And all it has to do is go straight up. Versus if you're 1/4 inch piecing on the right hand side, your bobbin tail has to go all the way over and then up. But when it just goes straight up, it kind of tricks a non-straight stitch machine to act like a straight stitch machine. So this is going to be the most professional, best stitch that you can get on a non-straight stitch machine. And this particular foot has, or this particular stitch plate has a foot that goes with it. Let's switch this. just like this, which is going to line up with these 3 feed dogs. There is also markings. So there are markings on this foot. Let's see if you can get. There's a 1/4 inch, there's a line right here in the front and then right here towards the back. See, these 2 are exactly a 1/4 inch from your needle, which is this back line. And what that is really nice for is if you're sewing something and you need to pivot at that corner, a 1/4 inch from the edge, this is going to give you that marking so you don't have to mark on your fabric on a bunch of different pieces, which I love. This is also another one that you will have to screw on. It's not a snap-on foot, but it is kind of a cult classic foot. Once we came out with it, people just fell in love with it.
When would be a good application to use that for?
Oh, so many. I could.
I've heard it's an amazing pairing, and I'm just wondering, like, should you have it on anytime you use a straight stitch, or is there a certain time that it's the most benefit or most beneficial?
So there's a lot of usage for it. Some of my favorites are paper piecing, because it has that center, because it basically looks like, you know, a featherweight foot or an industrial foot. And you can just line up the lines of the paper piecing right in the center of that foot. It's also amazing for curve piecing. When you're doing curve piecing, you get all of that buckling that happens on the left side of the foot. And normally when you have a larger foot, that's going to give you a larger footprint. That's going to create more buckles, and you're going to have to make more adjustments. With this particular foot, you have to do a lot less adjustments because there's only like a 1/4 inch covering the other side of the fabric, the other side of the seam allowance. It's also really good for tiny, more 3-dimensional piecing. So like if you've ever done stuffed animals, it's so nice for that because it's such a tiny foot, it doesn't get in the way like a bigger foot can do. Also just regular piecing, it's great for. Really, the sky's the limit. Like you just kind of discover more and more uses for it. It also has a H2 or HP2 foot, which is the same, but the Acu feed version of it. So it's going to have your top feed dogs right there. So it's going to give you the same markings, the same size, the same benefits, but with the additional benefit of adding the additional feed dogs on top.
I've used that foot and I absolutely love that one.
Isn't it great?
It is wonderful.
All right, let's go ahead and snap our stitch plate back on. And we're just going to push down. And then that machine is going to ask you to make sure that you have the proper foot attached. I'm going to X out of that. And you can see how easy it is to change out your stitch plate. How are we doing on time?
We are doing just fine. You actually have until 10:15, Miriam. So you've got about 15 minutes, 15, 20 minutes.
Fantastic. All right, so let's actually switch the stitch plates here. So I'm going to go back to my utility stitches. So I've switched back to my utility stitches. I'm going to put my feed dogs back up. Now you're not going to see them pop back up, but as soon as you start sewing, they're going to raise and then start working. So you may notice there were a lot more stitches here. And I also have, this is all grayed out because I have my straight stitch plate on. And like I mentioned before, it's not going to let you do anything that would damage the machine. So all I can really do is a straight stitch, but you can also do the triple stitch, which is one of my favorite stitches. And also the hand look stitch, which is another one of my favorite stitches. But you do have the ability to move to your 1/4 inch and then make some adjustments. And then you can make some adjustments within that small settings because you have that oval versus just a complete circle. Instead of just a circle, you have that oval that allows you to make those small adjustments within the right and the left side. So let's switch back to the I'm going to switch back to the zigzag plate because I want to quickly go over variable zigzag because this is one of my favorite settings in the machine that people don't really use or are really aware of. And I'm working on a project with this, so it's kind of fresh in my mind and I want to share a little bit about it. So I've changed out my foot. So now I just have my F2 foot on. So what variable zigzag is it is the ability to change the width of your zigzag using the pressure of your knee lift. So this machine will come with a knee lift. I'm going to insert it in the front. Let me move some of these boxes where my laptop was set on.
I'm excited to see this technique. I have not seen this before.
Ooh, it's a lot of fun.
Sounds fun. Gotta love the good old knee lift.
I know, and it's a new use for it.
There you go.
All right, so I have it inserted in the front of my machine. And I'm going to go back to my sewing applications. So I'm going to select that t-shirt. And I'm going to turn my page again until I hit the quilting, variable zigzag, and ruler work. Select that. And I'm going to select variable zigzag. Sorry, my earbud fell out. So within variable zigzag, I have a couple options. So first of all, I have free motion, and then I also have it with your feed dogs. You also have on these stitches, you may notice the M and the L. So the M means it's going to grow evenly on the right and the left side. So it's going to go this like undulating shape. Or there's the left, which is going to, my left is going to be stationary. And then my right is going to grow depending on the amount of pressure that I put on my knee lift. So this is an example of a little landscape that I made using variable Zig Zag.
How creative. That's so adorable.
So this shows the left side of the variable Zig Zag. So I just lined it up with the piecing and then just created some extra dimension and texture to the hills and the mountains. So it's all up in the sky, and then these are just regular stitches. So I'm going to stitch some of these out so you can kind of see it in action. All right, so I'm going to start with the M, the one that grows equally on the right and the left. So as I start sewing, I'm going to put pressure on my knee lift, and the more pressure that I put, the wider the zigzag will be. So
That's
see
so
how,
awesome.
and what's so cool about it is that you can also adjust how close your zigzag is and how far apart, the max width. There's all kinds of settings that you can do. This is such a variable zigzag is such a fun
She's having just a little bit of, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Miriam.
It's such a fun way to add texture and just additional interest to any sort of art quilting or especially landscapes. You can also do it with free motion that can really add a lot of color really quickly if you're doing any sort of, let's say, pictorial quilt where you need to get a lot of color down fast. That variable zigzag can be great for that. So I'm going to show you it with the left side. So this is how I created the edge of the mountains or the hills. And you can do a nice gentle...
Brian and I are over here admiring the screen because you can see it changing on the screen as you're sewing.
Right? Isn't that fun? And then you can do some really quick, kind of dramatic ones, or a nice gradual, which I really like to do. And you can see how different that looks because it's a lot tighter and it also is only growing on the one side. Isn't that fun?
That's a really cool feature. I kind of feel like we need to do a Facebook group challenge and see what people can come up with if their machine has that particular stitch.
I would love to see that because it's something that people don't really use as often as I feel like they should.
Yeah, I would be very interested to see what people come up with. Very, very creative.
Mm-hmm. Let me know if you guys do that.
Are you saying you're down for the challenge? You're going to do it with us?
Brian just said, you down?
I have a head start because I'm already working on a quilt with it.
We'll grade it on a curve then.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll still accept the challenge.
Very fun.
I also wanted to go over some decorative stitches because those are another thing that I feel like people don't really use as often as they should. So this is just a quick little example of using decorative stitches in a fun, this is reversed applique and crazy quilt combo. And all of these are stacked decorative stitches.
What does the reverse applique mean?
So these are just stacked decorative stitches, which I really love to combine stitches to get all new effects. And I see how easy it is to select different decorative stitches. So to select different decorative stitches, I just have to select that spiral icon. And then it's going to be all categorized that are matching the top. You can't see it on here, but on the flip lid, there are a printout of there's a printout of all of the different stitches, which there's again 350 built-in decorative stitches. And then if I wanted to select a particular stitch, let's say I want to go to satin, I can select satin, and then I can select any, let's say let's select number 2, which I like this stitch. I also can change the width of it. You can see it growing, you can see it getting closer, and it gets a completely different look than it was at its default. I'm going to stitch this out quickly.
Miriam, I just want to let you know that once we're done with that, we do have several questions for you, and we want to get to them before we have to let you go. So if you don't mind.
Oh yeah, this is Perfect. A great time to stop. So here's just it stitched out. You can see how different that looks than the regular default settings. All right, so give me some questions.
All right, well, let's take a look and see what we have first. Estelle is asking, is this machine more for quilting?
I would say yes and no. It's really a well-rounded and well-balanced machine. It leans itself for quilting because it does have this larger throat space, as well as the width, as well as vertical. And there's also some great LED lighting.
Perfect. We also had a couple of people asking about clothing. They're asking if it does well with knits or do you use it with wovens?
You can use either. There are several. There's several different built-in stretch stitches. So it works great with knit fabrics. And with knit fabrics, I love to use our AccuFeed foot. And it just feeds your knits wonderfully, and it keeps things from shifting. So it can be used for both.
Wonderful. Carol is asking, does this machine have stitch regulation for free motion quilting and ruler work?
It does not. No. But it does have speed control.
Okay. We were on the same line of thought there, Miriam. All right, let's see. Wayden was also asking about clothing, if it's good for clothing. I had seen that you took off the extension table. Can you just touch on why it's nice to have a free arm available when sewing clothing?
Oh, yeah. So when you have, let's pull this out. So it can be great to have your free arm, not only for clothing, but also for bags. Because if you're working on a small, like say, zipper pouch or a cuff of or a neckline of a garment, you need that free arm, which would allow the object to go around versus trying to deal with it up above. But yes, it does have an extension table. I just didn't have it set up because it felt like it was a little hard with the setting up everything else.
Well, thank you very much, Miriam. I think you covered so many good things about this 780 Plus. I love it. And I am really, really interested in that variable zigzag stitching. So I got to try that. Very cool. And also our product specialist was looking into that spray that you were using on the template. And she said, or she's asking, is it ODIF spray by chance?
I believe so. Yes. Yes.
ODIF? Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, once again, we appreciate you for coming on, and you answered all the questions that we had today. And we're going to do a little recap on some pricing on this amazing machine. So I think if you're good, do you want to stick around for the giveaway and we can give somebody a prize here? Awesome. Well, we are doing a $50 gift card to Sewing Parts Online. So let's go ahead and pick that winner, and then we can let Miriam get on with her day. Hopefully you'll tune into the rest of our SewCreative Live, right? All right, let's see who it is. I see some familiar names in there. Sherry Lynn Smith,
Yay.
Congratulations. You are the winner of the $50 gift card to Sewing Parts Online.
And you can get some of that spray.
Yeah.
There you go.
And we expect to see your little submission on the zigzag width on our Facebook group, right, Miriam?
Most definitely.
All right. Well, you have a great...
You found me loser, set me free.